everybody. Welcome to the weekly news recap, the 26th of August to the 1st of September 2024. So, this week, Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct Indie Showcase and a Partner Showcase. They are apparently different things. Anyway, Indie Showcase, as you might imagine, was all focusing on indie games making its way to Nintendo Switch later this year or early into next year. So first up, Balatro is getting a ton of crossover events. You can see here just from the thumbnail, Geralt of Rivia. So there's a Witcher crossover, there's a Dave the Diver crossover, there's Among Us, and Vampire Survivors. So as far as I'm aware, it just kind of changes the deck, and there are a couple of like unique combinations of cards that do different things depending on deck you're using. Vampire Survivors has like combinations of certain weapon types that in Vampire Survivors the game do different things, and in Balatro they'll also do something strange. Among Us has something similar, and I think the king in Among Us is the imposter. Anyway, you already have Balatro. They are free as far as I'm aware and are actually already out. Neva, from the same studio behind Gris. Get the name of the studio now, but anyway, they have a release date for Neva. It's coming out October 15th, 2024. We had a look at this Game Awards 2023, I think. So you can see it's still kind of doing the same very like rich, vibrant color palette that Gris had, despite the name. It was actually quite colorful. It's not particularly clear what the storyline along this is. You have some kind of spirit wolf thing with you that also has antlers. Don't think too hard about it. It's also not clear how the wolf fights in combat with you. Are you in control of them? Are you giving them commands? Anything like that? But it looks pretty good. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out. October 15th, 2024. Moth Cubit was shown off. This is like the first time this game has been shown off. It is kind of a top-down RPG. You're playing this little tiny moth guy. It's his first day on the job. That's his first day on the job. He's getting promoted to something. Moth Cubit has a particular skill and ability that they can shrink themselves really, really small. It's not shown off here in this trailer, but in some of the gameplay that was shown off during the Nintendo Direct, you kind of shrink them the same way you'd shrink an image in like art editing software, image editing software. Like you'd, draw a square around it and then pull at one of the corners and shrink them. That seems to be the way you do it here. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Yuppie Psycho. Yuppie Psycho has a similar situation where you're, Well, Yuppie Psycho, it literally is your first day on the job. But in this one, it's kind of similar in that your job is not exactly what you think it is, and some other kind of weird shit going on. Anyway, it's going to be a while before we see any more from this game, because it's not going to be out until next year at some stage. Coffee Talk Tokyo. So this is following on from Coffee Talk episode 1 and 2. So the original creator of Coffee Talk passed away shortly before Coffee Talk 1 was released, and they were in the middle of production of Coffee Talk 2. They finished making Coffee Talk episode 2, and now they're continuing the series without the original creator, but I mean, it's working out for them. They enjoy working on it, why not? So Coffee Talk Tokyo, it doesn't have the episode moniker to it, so it might be that they're just looking to branch out to different areas, different folklore and stuff like that. If you're not familiar, Coffee Talk episode 1 and 2 kind of is set in a sort of kind of like a contemporary modern setting, but the like fantasy creatures like elves and orcs and various other things are all intertwined with humanity. It's like they just go about their daily jobs. They have jobs as, typical business people or artists, writers, whatever. They just have the same jobs as everybody else. And then Coffee Talk is like a slice of life from that universe. Episode 2 was much the same. Slightly different characters and some returning characters and so on. Coffee Talk Tokyo looks like it's going to be going with the Japanese folklore stuff. You saw back there was a Kappa guy, old man. There's a Torii Gate filter, not filter. What's the word? Stencil for your coffee. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other Japanese folklore that I'm necessarily understanding. This guy's wearing gloves for some reason on the left. Got this kid who's also a fox. Maybe they're a fox spirit or something like that. Anyway, I don't think they had a release date for this. Be wrong. Yeah, ready to pour 2025. So yeah, that's next year as well. Sea of Stars Throes of the Watchmaker is some DLC for Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars was part of PlayStation Plus when it launched. I'm not sure if it still is. I think it was on Game Pass as well. So there's a good chance you already have this. And then there's some free DLC for it. 2025 for that. Power Wash Simulator is getting a Shrek special pack. The meme is complete, I guess. A couple of different areas from the Shrek films. The swamp, for one, is what you can see in the thumbnail. It didn't show up what the rest of them were. 5 themed maps, rather. So only 5. I'm not sure what the other ones would be. Oh no, they did say the Dragon's Lair is one. It's not sure if it's just the first film or if it's the whole series. Morsels was a new game shown off. It's kind of had like a top-down Binding of Isaac vibe to it. Sort of. You got this kind of old school CRT scanline thing going on with it. The idea with Morsels is that you're in some kind of like cat hell or something, and you are playing this kind of mouse, and the mouse can, if it eats different things, it can turn into other things. And just bullet hell shenanigans ensue afterwards. I think the general gist of it is you are just trying to get through these areas and not get eaten by things that would eat your character, presumably. Art style is interesting. It actually didn't look great on the Nintendo Showcase. I imagine that was just because it was like a premiere live stream kind of thing. Bitrate was pretty shit, but it looks a lot better here. Anyway, similarly, I don't think there's a release date. I don't know. Well, a release window, February 2025. Date Everything was shown off during one of the, maybe it was a Wholesome Direct or something like that. Concept behind Date Everything is that it's a dating sim, but you're dating anthropomorphized objects. So you're dating like your TV or your fridge or like your dishware cabinet or the washing machine. And then there's other like more conceptual things. Like I think there's your growing sense of what was it called? It had like a really like terrible name that nobody would ever want to date. There he is. Doug, your overwhelming sense of existential dread. That's what it was. I don't want to date you, Doug. Please leave. Anyway, there's all sorts of weird stuff like that. How you're able to date so many people and they're okay with it, I don't know. Are you in some kind of polycule? How are you supposed to deal with it when you literally own the object? That feels a bit weird. Anyway, October 24th, you can have all these sorts of ethical questions if you feel like it. Peglin. I don't know what the gist was of Peglin. I think it's Peggle, but you're a goblin and there's like an overarching roguelike element to it, but it's still just Peggle, the game. If you're not familiar with Peggle, you're looking at it right now. That's Peggle. It's sort of pinball, sort of Tetris, sort of Brick Breaker thing. Anyway, but there is a sort of roguelike element to it. I think some of the later Peggle games had a bit more of like a puzzle element. It's like you only have so many balls, presumably. I'm sure they have a stupid name. Anyway, that's Peglin. I think it's out now. The time console exclusive on Switch and is available starting today. Yeah, so it's already out. Wobbly Life is coming to like an early access thing, but it's also going to be, it's already in early access, but it will be making its way to Switch at some point. I think it's like Animal Crossing, but you have like wobbly physics. Not even like Animal Crossing, really. It's more like a just goat simulator thing, maybe, but with like wobbly physics. Anyway, it looks janky. It looks janky as fuck. Anyway, if you're interested, it's already in early access and make its way to Switch later this year in December. Pico Park 2 is obviously the sequel to Pico Park 1. You and like 7 friends, there's like 8. I'm not sure if you can actually do like 8-person co-op, but you control like 8 people at once. And it's a bit Lemmings, it's a bit like chaotic elements to it that you're trying to just make sure everybody gets to the end at the same time. Some of them, okay, so like here, you can't all get to the top, but if you stack everybody on top of each other, you know, one of you will be able to jump to the very top thing and then press a button and launch everybody up to the beginning. So it's that kind of cooperative element to the game. For 2 to 8 players, okay, so it does require minimum 2 people. You're not controlling 8 people at once. And there's a bit of chain together going on as well. Okay, so like kind of fun physics stuff with your friends if you feel like it. And if you don't have any friends, I guess you can't play the game. Oh well. Anyway, that is out now, I think. I think it launched on the same day. Game is available today, yes, okay. Then there was a montage showing off a bunch of different games that are making their way to Nintendo Switch at the end of the year. Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope DX, it's effectively is Shovel Knight with all of its DLC. Europa is an RPG that's a bit... reminds me of Dark Cloud, but I don't think it's really like that. And then On Your Tail is the one that's in the thumbnail. It's a furry detective game, and it's out September at some stage, so this month. Pizza Tower, somehow if you haven't played it yet, it is essentially Wario Land, but not Wario. It's making it's on Nintendo Switch as of today, so it's already out. Tetris Forever. Tetris is having a like 30th anniversary something this year. Tetris must be older than that. It's a 40th? The 40th anniversary, yeah. I was wondering, because I'm almost as old as Tetris, but not quite. I knew that. Anyway. So lots of Tetris things. There's some interesting Tetris time warp thing where you can... I think it's like every time you complete a line, it changes to a different Tetris. And like it changes the skin. It's like the original gray and black Tetris, and you have the green and black Tetris, and then like the very colorful ones and so on, all through the history of the game. And then there's some other like co-op things. There's a Battle Royale Tetris and that kind of thing. Pretty interesting. Star Overdrive. So this was a new game that was shown off. It's going to be 2025 at some point, and I believe it is going to be multi-platform. So it's not just going to be on the Switch. I kind of like the look of this. It's like, again, I'm not sure if to just call it Hi-Fi Rush-ification, because there's been a couple of games that have the Hi-Fi Rush look to them. You know, very colorful, very kind of upbeat, you know, not... I don't know. It's like... yeah, the future's going to be kind of shit, but let's have fun with it, I guess is the way to look at it. Anyway, you got this hoverboard thing that seems to be your main mode of transportation. There's a bit of the Sonic bonus levels going on there. There is also like a combat element to it. There's a little bit of, what was that game called? Hellskate, which was a bit like Tony Hawk's and Hades at the same time. This isn't quite that level of it. The combat isn't quite as fast-paced as something like that. There are randomly just D20s. Don't know why they're in there, but whatever. And there's some like crazy tricks and shit you can do with the hoverboard to like keep yourself going. I think getting like hoverboard has some sort of energy thing to it, energy limitation to it, but the more tricks you pull off, the more energy you get, so you can keep hoverboarding for longer and stuff like that. So, and there's, you know, doing sandworms because why not? Anyway, Star Overdrive, some stage next year. Thought it looked pretty cool. Goat Simulator 3 is now on everything at this point. So it's on Switch. I think it came out the same day. Yep, Nintendo Switch today. Nintendo Direct montage number 1. This was like a fast-paced thing of, hey, these games are making their way to Nintendo Direct or Nintendo Switch at some point. Most of them not particularly interesting. We've kind of seen them in a lot of different places. Disney Dreamlight Valley is already there. I think it's just there's a new season or something. Stalker Legends of the Zone is Stalkers 1, 2, and 3. Or, sorry, Stalker 1 and then Stalker not 2 and then not 3. Because they're technically not sequels or something. I don't know what it is, but anyway. Another Worms game, somehow. It's Worms Armageddon Anniversary. I think it's a remaster. Okay. And then Star Wars Hunters is just a very bad hero shooter from Star Wars. The more interesting one is The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, because that is a remake of the very first Legend of Heroes game. And these games never made their way out of Japan. There's only one. The most recent one made its way out of Japan. But other than that, all of the other ones have never made their way out of the Japanese territory. So it'll be interesting to see like how the first game plays in the series. Now they did say that they have changed it up a little bit, so some like quality of life improvements and some different game mechanics that were introduced later on in the series, they've added them into this one, even though it potentially shouldn't have been. I don't know. Okay, so Star Wars Hunters is already there, and I think they just added a new character, Ewoks, a new area, something like that. I don't know. Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy is apparently Stalker 1 and then not Stalker 2 and 3. Just don't think about it. Apparently they're not sequels. Don't ask me. I don't know. And then Worms, and then Disney Dreamlight Valley, and so on. Right. Sponsored by SquarePants, the Patrick Star game is Goat Simulator, but you're Patrick Star. It's kind of it. It's like a big sandbox, physics, fun times. You're given some missions and challenges to be done by various characters that you'll recognize. So SpongeBob is there, Mr. Krabs is there, Squidward is there, and so on. Fitness Boxing 3 is a fitness game with your Nintendo Switch, and you box with the Joy-Cons, but you don't box properly, because if you box properly, it doesn't register it. That's what I found out. Anyway, do an actual proper punch, doesn't recognize it. Do a shit punch, recognizes that alright. Anyway, for instance, this position the woman is in the art won't recognize that, because that rotation, they won't pick it up. Anyway, we'll see how it actually comes out, when it actually comes out, if they have fixed that or not. Because I want a boxing game, and the ones in VR are just as bad. You have to keep your arms straight and very close to your body for it to actually recognize them, and that's not how you actually punch IRL. I have 3 black belts, kickboxing. I know how to throw a punch. That's not how you throw a punch. Anyway, that's coming out December 5th, 2024. If it's under €40, I will give it a look. If it's any more than that, I'm not touching it. Okay, this was kind of blowing up in the fighting community, Capcom Fighting Collection 2. So we already knew there was a Capcom fighting thing on its way, but that was like a Marvel vs. Capcom collection. Whereas this one is a little bit different. This is kind of Capcom games doing crossovers with King of Fighters, I think, and other King of Fighters adjacent games. So some of the more interesting things coming out of it, a lot of these games are basically unplayable now. They're on either platforms that aren't in production anymore, but they were only ever in the arcades and they never got a home console release, or they never made their way out of Japan, etc., etc. So a lot of these are kind of niche. Capcom vs. SNK games, I think, predate Marvel vs. Capcom, but kind of the bigger ones is that Power Stone and Power Stone 2. Again, 2 Capcom games that Capcom just seems to have forgotten about. Project Justice is another one that I think was arcade only. There's another Street Fighter 3 Alpha, but whatever. Don't worry about that. Capcom Fighting Evolution has a bit of a infamy, really, in that it's not good. But it's there now. For historical reasons, at least people can see why it's not good. And then Plasma Sword, this felt like a... Plasma Sword, I think, came out roughly around the same time as... It's either Battle Arena Toshinden or something else. But it was too similar, and Battle Arena took off and Plasma Sword didn't. Or it's either Plasma Sword and Soul Calibur, maybe? Weapon-based combat, and then Soul Calibur just blew it out of the water. Something like that. Anyways, a lot of extra things. Some of these games that didn't originally have online competitive play, like to just predate the internet, now they do. So that's like Power Stone online tournaments can now be a thing, which is a bit crazy to be saying. But anyway, well, I say now, it's not out yet, so 2025, then it'll be a thing. All right, this is the one that we already knew about, which was the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. September 12th, that's out pretty soon. Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories, and The Envisioned Land. The Atelier continues its series of having really, really long titles. This is the next Atelier game. If you're not familiar, it's an alchemy JRPG. So it's got your standard turn-based combat RPG stuff that you might expect from, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, that kind of thing. The smaller gimmick that it has is there is like an alchemy component to the game, which is like mixing different items that you collect in the environment to create either new weapons or new defensive things, new armor, or new consumables and stuff like that. So that's kind of the bigger overarching mechanic of the Atelier series. It's also usually kind of a budgety game. It's not really in the AAA sphere. Atelier Ryza was the last trilogy. Was more or less a kind of straddled PS3 and PS4, and it looks like Atelier Yumiya will be doing PS4, PS5 kind of job. I mean, it has to run on the Switch, so it's probably can run on PS4 as well. Anyway, I like it, but it's definitely not for everybody. And early 2025. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. That's pretty good. Again, these would be pretty tough games to recommend people nowadays, the originals. It's definitely very easy to bounce off them. Like 100 allies that you need to keep track of and stuff like that, building up your own army and that kind of thing. It's a bit much. Like, they're good games, but it's a bit much to drop on somebody. Some quality of life things, auto battling, battle skips, all of that kind of usual stuff you see now from remastered JRPGs. March 6th, 2025. Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D thing. We did know about this already. It was shown off Gamescom. November 14th, we're going to be having a look at that. And one new job has been added. It's the Monster Wrangler. Or vocation, rather. They can't call it a job because job is Final Fantasy. So vocation for Dragon Quest. But it's the same. It's a class. So Monster Wrangler is a bit like Blue Mage. Final Fantasy is you learn enemies' abilities and you can use them against them. I don't think you can like capture them. I don't think it's like Pokemon where you like have another monster fight for you. I think it's you learn their ability and then can use it in battle. I think that's the deal. Anyway, that was not in the original Dragon Quest 3, so that's new. Again, kind of blowing up on other areas of video games, social medias and Twitters and what have you. Castlevania, the DS games. Again, these were somewhat locked to the DS. I don't think they ever made their way off the DS. So this is the Castlevania DS trilogy. Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia. Those are 3 really good Castlevania games. And then kind of randomly, Haunted Castle, which is an arcade Castlevania, kind of. It's also not good, but anyway, like a lot of arcade games of the time, they were more interested in frustrating you and being extremely cheap and unfair so that you would spend more money. Anyway, that's got a remake, and that's also part of the bundle, and is also already out, I think. Doesn't mention it there, but I'm pretty sure it's already out on, Switch as well, but I did see it on the PlayStation Store, so it's definitely on a couple of things. Civilization 7 is making its way to the Switch for some reason. Good luck playing that. Why? Play it in the worst possible way, I guess. No. I suppose if you have to play it on your phone, that would be the worst way to play Civ. But the second worst way probably is to play it on your Switch. Anyway, if you're stuck and don't have anything else you can play Civ on, and you really want to, February 11, 2025. Tales of Graces F remastered. The Tales of series is another very long-running JRPG. The Tales series kind of distinguishes itself in that combat is real-time, plays a little bit more like a fighting game, or at least it used to. When it was 2D, when it went 3D, it started going a bit more, I don't know, slash 'em ups, really, more than anything else. It just kind of... So the original Tales games, or the older Tales games, we'll say, were isometric, 16-bit kind of affairs, and when combat started, it changed to a like side-on view. So you would input commands like a fighting game, like quarter circle forward punch would do a special move and stuff like that. But when the game jumped to 3D, they somewhat got rid of that, and now things just happen to be like just one direction and one button, and you would do something different. Definitely simplified it massively, but I think it lost a lot of its character. Anyway, Tales of Graces F is one of the better 3D ones, and that's getting the remaster treatment, and is making its way to lots of different platforms on January 17th next year. My Sims. So My Sims is like Chibi The Sims, and it has like an actual storyline to it, where you take your character through a bunch of different activities and different challenges. So it's not quite like the way The Sims is sort of open-ended. You kind of do whatever you want. Just it's a simulator. That's what the sim part means. This is more of a we'll say a directed version of The Sims, I guess. It gives you actual challenges to do that build on each other, and it's not like a tutorial just taking you through all the different things. The challenges are like, do this. Okay, now that you can do this, now you can do this. And like it builds on top of itself. It's not just taking you through all the different things. Anyway, My Sims Cozy Bundle is the very first My Sims, which is set in like modern times. And then there's like a medieval version, My Sims Kingdoms, which was the second one. November 19th for that. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 is not Security Breach, but it is like the other first person, which is effectively just a ton of minigames of Five Nights at Freddy. And then there is additional DLC for Security Breach, Ruin. They didn't really go into what exactly is involved there. I think it's set sometime well after Five Nights at Freddy's has been, or Freddy's Pizza Gallery, whatever, has been shut down. Like, it's a good while after it, and the building is in ruins. Another montage of a bunch of games making their way to Nintendo Switch. So Horizon Adventures is out later this year. Tales of the Shire didn't have a release date, but that's Hobbit, Animal Crossing. Funko Fusion we will not talk about. Just Dance, it's a dancing game, you don't really need to know more. EA Football, I'm sure you understand. Epic Mickey Rebrushed is not a big penis, it's like it would be called in Ireland. It is in fact Mickey Mouse. Rebrushed, remastered. September 24th. There's a demo for that available as well. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is the next Rune Factory game. The last Rune Factory game is quite some time ago, and it seemed like the series had pretty much died off. But think of it as Animal Crossing. Indeed, Animal Crossing, but you are a hobbit. How you doing, TDV Wiley? Yeah, Rune Factory is like... It was a game with Square Enix a while ago called Harvestella, which was a combination of a farming sim and an action RPG. And the Rune Factory games are something along those lines. And would have kind of started that idea of being half of one game and half of another game and half-assing both of them. To me, it's like, doesn't go far enough in the farming sim bit to be really satisfying for the farming sim people, and it doesn't go far enough in the action RPG bit to be satisfying for the action RPG people. So it's disappointing both camps. Anyway, and then we finished off with Yakuza Kiwami, which is available on basically everything except the Switch, and now will be available on the Switch as well. October 24th. Yakuza Kiwami is a remake of the original Yakuza game. It's good stuff. Chances are you've played it already though, because it's on everything else and has been on Game Pass and has been on PlayStation Plus and has been an epic free game, I think, at one point. Anyway, that was it for the Nintendo Direct stuff, but updates elsewhere in the world of video games. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is this really impressive looking RPG from studio, newly made studio that's made up of a bunch of new AAA or former AAA developers. The only farming sim I've ever enjoyed is Stardew. Everything else lacked content. Stardew is a hard act to follow. It's like trying to play a roguelike after playing Hades. Just good luck. Just very good luck to you. Trying to do a farming sim after Stardew's just... You're not gonna do it. Like, he's still working on it. After how many years? I don't know how long it's been. There was an article that I was going to talk about, but I left it out for different reasons. But it's that the developer, Concerned Ape, behind Stardew Valley, hasn't worked on Haunted Chocolatier in ages, which is his next game, because he's still working on Stardew Valley. Anyway, back to Clair Obscur. So this was shown off... Again, I think it was last year's Game Awards. The gist of the game is there is some kind of... I don't know, demigod witch thing that lives off in this underwater, but is also not underwater area, mystical realm. And she is constantly adding... she's enumerating, incrementing a number. And everybody who is older than that number dies. Just gone. So Expedition 33 is all the people who are effectively younger than 33, trying to get out to the witch and kill her before she, says 34 or 35 or what have you, because people will start dying. Sorry, she's not counting up, she's counting down. She's counting down. There's a lot of quick time stuff. Yeah, so the game has a bit of the turn-based combat stuff that you would expect in a lot of traditional RPGs, but it does have just-in-time parrying, and they can open up counter-attacks and things like that. So it's kind of getting away from the turn-based aspect in that you can kind of take your time and be a little bit relaxed and what have you. But no, you kind of need to be paying attention, because when it's the enemy's turn, you also still have things to do. And it is apparently technically possible to complete the game at level 1. You just have to never get hit. So it's possible to, just in time, parry every attack and then counterattack and win. Because your counterattack, I think, it's not scaled with the level or something like that. It just does half the enemy's health or something like that. Anyway, I can see a lot of pretty hilarious speedruns of this game, or challenge runs. I'm going to play this game and all I'm going to do is fucking parry people. Sounds like something I do. It sounds like something I'd attempt and then get pissed off and stop doing. Anyway, this game is still a while off, but from what I have seen, it looks really impressive. Previews, articles are up in a lot of different places as well, saying a lot of the same stuff. Looks pretty cool. Hopefully they can stick the landing. Anyway, good while before we'll actually see any release dates or anything like that from it. Moving on, randomly out of nowhere, Argonaut Games decides to wake up and go, hey, who wants more Croc Legend of the Gobbos for some reason? Okay, so... Croc Legend of the Gobbos came out in, oh god, I'm going to feel incredibly old, 1997. I was 12. So this makes sense why I remember this game so well, I guess. It was not particularly great platformer, not unlike, well, I'm gonna say like Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot, but that is way too high praise for Croc Legend of the Gobbos, because it was nowhere near as good as those. But it had a bit of a following because it was kind of cheap and a lot of people could afford it, which meant a lot of people could play it. So randomly, Argonaut Games are waking back up after their 20 years since they closed down, deciding, hey, let's do a Croc Legend of the Gobbos remaster. Okay, cool. They have some other games in the pipeline as well, but that's kind of random. I mean, I'm gonna get it because, of course, because again, everything you played when you were 12 is the best ever, and everything after that is shit. Speaking of shit, Foam Stars to become free to play. So you may or may not recall, Foam Stars was Square Enix's attempt to do Splatoon, but make it a live service thing, and it turns out I don't think many people wanted to play it. Didn't help that it was a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and also required a PlayStation Plus subscription, Wasn't released as part of the PlayStation Plus subscription or anything like that, so they kind of shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways. Anyway, pricing structure will change at the beginning of October this year, and if you have already bought it, you'll get a bunch of in-game shit that you probably don't care about because you're not even playing the game anymore. Anyway, this strikes me as Square Enix thinking anyone who was going to buy the game has bought it at this point. So now they're just trying to get more people in for the microtransaction stuff. Because if a game goes free to play, you know it's going to add a bunch of microtransaction shit on top. I hate the whole idea of exclusive. It's not great. Like, the business that gets the exclusive, it's obviously good for them because it means their product is now more attractive. But for a games preservation standpoint, and particularly for multiplayer games, exclusivity is just terrible. Unless you can't have exclusivity and crossplay. That doesn't make sense. But surely for a multiplayer game, you want as many people as possible to play it. And making it exclusive to the PS5 as well. It wasn't like it was PS4 or PS5 exclusive. They might have got a bit more people that way, but specifically the one that not many people were able to buy. Cool. Bet Helldivers would have done much better if it was on... I mean, yeah, it would have had a much bigger player base. Just a much larger player base to choose from. But whatever. Sony did some of the publishing, which means they probably have some amount of ownership in it, so kind of called the shots on that. Persona, Italian... Okay, so Demon School has been delayed, which is somewhat disappointing, but also I have so many other games in my backlog that it's okay. Take your time. So Demon School, I don't remember if we played it on stream. It's part of Steam Next Fest. I did play it, but I don't think I played it on stream. Anyway, it's got a bit of... Just think Persona, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but demons. And also Italy. Just mush all of that together. And you've got Demon School. It was meant to come out next month, or not next month, this month. It would have been next month at the time this article was written, 13th of September, but has since been delayed to some stage 2025. Realistically, the players would never have known. It's the idea that they were delaying it because they wanted to add more to the games. The player would never have known this, but it still would have been a finished product, but we would have known that the game could have been more, and that's the game we want to share. So they're going to take a little bit more time to put in all the things they want to put in. So we're going to have to wait until early next year at some stage. The games might have been delayed. This game has been cancelled outright. So Blue Protocol is Genshin Impact in a lot of ways. MMORPG, maybe, not really. Anyway, it doesn't matter because they cancelled it. It's done. It was meant to come out as a Western release at some stage this year. Was released in Japan June of last year. It was coming to the West as via Amazon Games. So Amazon still haven't published a game yet. How long has that been open? They still haven't made a game? This is from the same studio that says we don't have acting. Same studio behind Tomb Raider says we don't have acting. Okay. Cool. Anyway, servers are going to be turned off early next year at some stage. We've come to the conclusion that it will not be possible to provide a service that satisfies all of you. We deeply apologize for the sudden announcement. I mean, did you really think he would provide a service that satisfies everybody? That's impossible? Actually impossible? There are just people who are straight up will never be satisfied with anything. In fact, the satisfaction they get is not being satisfied. It feels wrong if they're satisfied. It's something deeply broken in them. But anyway, can't please everybody. Why would you even try? This goes back to the same idea that when Google acquired Raccoon Logic, the guys from Journey to the Savage Planet, and they said to them, we were pitching games, we want you to make a game that 100% of people will like. Okay, good luck with that. Anyway, this isn't exactly video game news, but it's somewhat, maybe, possibly video game adjacent, I don't know. I live in hope forever. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver graphic novel smashes through $1 million milestone. Its funding goal was like 200 grand or something, and it just blasted right through it. And since talking about this, it's way past $1 million. It's verging on 2 million at this point. Disclosure, I have backed it because I'm hopelessly dreaming that Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain will make a return someday, please. If anything, maybe this shows that there's some interest, but I kind of get the feeling Crystal Dynamics are well aware that there is a lot of interest in Legacy of Kain, and they just don't want to. Anyway, Epic Games free game this week is the Fallout Trilogy, Fallout Collection. So these are the Fallout games that aren't the Bethesda ones, pretty much. So it's Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Tactics. They're all the isometric ones. Arguably, some people would say the good Fallout games. I would still put New Vegas above all of these, but still. Anyway, moving on. It's going to be the start of a new month, so PlayStation Plus has been refreshed. I haven't got the Game Pass one yet. Anyway, PlayStation Plus, not great. Not great this month. So we've got Quidditch. Okay. Then we've got baseball. Alright. Then we've got... Okay, well, Little Nightmares 2 is decent, I suppose. But the other two... gross. Anyway. If you somehow haven't played Little Nightmares 2 yet, yeah, give that a shot. The other two, I guess if you're really into baseball, sure. And I think even if you are into, like, Harry Potter stuff, I still don't think you have any real interest in playing a Quidditch game, but okay. Those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something right now? Well, you can play Star Wars Outlaws if you want, or at least you could if you didn't buy the game early and then got locked out of your game save from a later patch. Good job, Ubisoft. So there was some news that people who had paid to play the game early, let's be clear, you're not paying to play the game early, you're paying to play the game on release day. And the poors are playing it late, but they can't say that. They have to do it the other way around because nobody would want that. Game Pass hasn't been too good either. Core Keepers there. Yeah, Core Keepers I've heard is decent. Anyway, Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft. Apparently it's not another map porn Ubisoft game. You don't have to climb a tower and synchronize and see all of your various activities and then have a completely barren map in between those activities. Apparently it's not like that. From what I've seen, it is okay. Some reviews I've seen of it are really into it. Some are like, yeah, it's fine. Does the job, it's fun. It's not amazing. I haven't seen any reviews that say it's bad though, so I guess that's something. Anyway, that is out now. Just, if you play it early, PS5, there was a patch that was put out later that seemed to brick those saves from that period, so you would have to essentially restart the whole game. So you're paying early basically meant nothing because it made no progress. Good shit. So they got you to spend extra money to play the game early and then just completely torpedoed any of the progress you made. Good shit. Good shit. To see a Star Wars game where you can choose your own character, find your own way through the world. Yeah, it's called The Old Republic. It was an MMORPG. It's already out. Knock yourself out. The game it does exist. MEO, something, the Smiling Man detective game. So this is... It's sort of a follow-up entry in the Famicom Detective Club series. But the very last one of that was 30 years ago. This is a very old series. Very old visual novel series. And potentially will only be of interest to people who remember it. I don't know. But it is like a detective thing. So if you want to think of the parts of the Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright stuff that isn't the trial, the extra bits, the bits around it where he goes looking for clues and that kind of thing, that's kind of what this is. Not a fan of MMOs. That is a problem. That is indeed a problem. Yeah, I don't know. I like Final Fantasy 14, but kind of the rest of the MMOs, yeah, not a huge fan of. Also, we have Visions of Mana. Visions of Mana, again, another follow-up to a long-running RPG series. Coming out from the Tales of Mana series, and then kind of the rest of them aren't particularly great. Visions of Mana seems to be decent. Again, reviews are going from this is pretty good to it's okay. It's fun, but there's some like, Japanese anime tropiness to it that makes it a little bit off-putting for some people. I don't know. Again, I haven't seen a review that says it's bad, so no, it's probably all right. Anyway, we'll keep in mind because we have something else to talk about for Visions of Mana. But anyway, that's moving along. That's already out. And then one that I haven't seen mentioned on too many publications, but I have played a little bit of it and I really, really liked it. So this is Bloodless. It's an indie game that did have a demo during the Steam Next Fest. And the premise for Bloodless is you are playing a samurai or former samurai who's kind of forsaken bloody combat and basically doesn't want to kill people anymore. So the way it works is you are completely unarmed and all of it is done by parrying enemies and then like knocking them out or breaking their weapon or that kind of thing. So that's kind of the gist of the game. You're not really trying to kill anybody, but it seems like blood and death seems to follow you around anyway. Combat mechanic is pretty cool. Works out really well. Feels a little bit like Metal Gear Rising, that you're having to like move towards enemies to parry them, or like kind of like strike their strike with your own combat. It isn't quite entirely a parry system. You can go on the offensive, but I do find the parrying makes it just a lot easier when you do it right. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with just timing and dexterity that maybe not everybody will have. Anyway, unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, video game industry. So, Concord has sold only 25,000 copies, estimated. We don't have the exact numbers because Sony doesn't release them. We're basing this on Steam sales in some ways, then comparing that to Steam player count, and then sort of extrapolating from there for PlayStation and what have you. So, either way, 25k approximate for a multiplayer game? That's pretty bad. Concord is estimated to have sold just 25,000 copies. Currently on Steam, its highest concurrent player count was 151 people. That's a 4v4 game. 151. That doesn't divide by 8. Anyway. At the time that the article was written, there were only 71 people playing. This is only on Steam because, again, PlayStation, you don't get the numbers, but I can't imagine it's much better. Concord is ranked 147th in the daily active users across PlayStation, so that's 0.2% of Monday's active players. 0.2%. Ouch. Analysts approached by AGN suggest that Concord's beleaguered launch follows poor marketing, a high price point, and most critically, a lack of differentiation in an oversaturated market. There are too many hero shooters already. As I said before, people have chosen their hero shooter at this point. If they're interested in the genre, they have chosen their game. And the way the games are built almost require you to play that game exclusively, or you will not make progress, you will not unlock the things you want to unlock, and so on. You don't have time for a second game. You certainly don't have time for a premium-priced second game that nobody has heard of. A tight-knit group of players might be willing to take a chance on a new game for free, but paying $40 is a big ask in today's macroeconomic climate. I think it was more than $40 as well. Trying to get, you and 3 buddies to play or to spend money on a game that hasn't proven itself, it's a bit of an ask. Launching Concord as a premium game limited its audience numbers and user acquisition. Of course, as I said, for a lot of multiplayer games, you want this to be played by as many people as possible, which means, 1, multi-platform, but 2, it means making it free, pretty much. Maybe you have like a premium component to it, I don't know. Maybe the free version, you have only so many characters available or something, I don't know. It's trying to get away from the horrible microtransaction supported element of free-to-play games, because it's just not good for the industry. But if you want to have these kind of big multiplayer games that have a lot of people playing, so there's a lot of variety, you'll always get a game, you'll always get a match, you're not waiting in the lobby waiting for somebody to join, something like that, kind of has to be free or basically free, like a fiver or something. Anyway, Concord should have launched as a free-to-play or at least part of the PlayStation Plus subscription. Yeah, to have a fighting chance in its overcrowded genre. It's not too late for it to change course, but the damage may have already been done. Yes, so this would be kind of be the case of if they do decide now to pivot to free-to-play, that kind of would signify that it's not doing well. Even if the reason they're pivoting to free-to-play is to get more people to play it. This is kind of something you could also say about Foam Stars. Does it mean the game isn't doing well, or does it mean that they want more people to play it? Could both of them be the same thing? Probably. Concord didn't look great, and it also wasn't an exclusive. That's true. There was a PC version of Concord that's still not doing great. Everybody wanted to jump on the live service bandwagon, but the thing is, the bandwagon left the station, if we can mix metaphors, left the station like 5 years ago. That's when they all started to make their games. So now we're getting a lot of these live service games coming out now. Started development when live service was popular. You missed it. You missed your chance. And it's just the way that they are set up and the way that they're monetized and the way that progress is like gate kept in these kind of games is that they turn it into a second job. You know, you're having to log in every day. You're having to play this many matches every day. You have to do this many things every day or you don't get whatever crumbs of currency that they deign to give you, or you can throw money at it. An uncapped infinite amount of money. Ever take a look at it, you'll think, hang on, I could have bought like 8 games for the amount of money I've spent in, I don't know, Call of Duty or something like that. Like, the point is, people don't have the money to do that with, they barely have the money to do that with one game. They barely have the time to do that with one game, and you want them to do it with like 12 games. I mean, this is why I feel Jim Ryan was let go at Sony, because he was all in for Sony to just basically only do live service shit for the next while. And it's why, once he left, Sony went, let's fucking cut all of these. We're not doing any of those anymore. Oh my god. New COD beta isn't too great. I mean, has COD been good for the last 12 years or so? Anyway. I mean, I never thought COD was good. I would come out and very much say that I never thought Call of Duty was good in the first place, but I don't think it's been particularly great in the last while anyway. Okay, speaking of live service mismanagement and all of that shit, this is a report from Did You Know Gaming. Activision mismanaged Toys for Bob Studio after modest Crash Bandicoot 4 sales. So Did You Know Gaming has a pretty substantial report on what was going to be Crash Bandicoot 5 and what inevitably happened between Toys for Bob and Activision, and then what's going on with them later. I expected something better. So, there's a new video. Crash and Spyro developer Toys for Bob has been extensively mismanaged by ex-parent company Activision Blizzard. They're definitely using the whole Black Ops name to sell more copies. Yeah, I would think so as well. I mean, their weird Battle Royale Warzone thing should be its own product at this point. But they know they won't get the money out of it if they do that. So, anyway, so Crash 4, It's About Time, when it initially released, came out weak sales because it launched pretty soon after the Insane Trilogy. You might remember the Insane Trilogy was a trilogy collection of a complete remakes of Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3, which are beloved platforms from the PlayStation, ye oldie PlayStation games. That was always going to make a lot of money. Debatable if a sequel that doesn't have the beloved nostalgia to it was also going to make that kind of money, and it didn't. Initially. Thing is, give it a while, and it then ended up selling 5 million copies, which is pretty good. But not for Activision Blizzard. It wasn't good enough, because they didn't make all of the money immediately. They decided, Toys for Bob, you're doing live service shit now instead. And they threw them all in the Call of Duty mines in 2021 and then locked the door and didn't come back. Toys for Bob, for their part, did try to continue making Crash games, and they made Crash Team Rumble, the weird 4v4 hero shootery type Crash Bandicoot game that no one remembers because it didn't even last an entire year before it was shut down. Toys for Bob, again, after Crash 5 was kind of shut down, they were still continuing to try to think of, what to do with future entries. Crash 5 was originally going to be a team up between Crash and Spyro. Toys for Bob did have the license for both of them, or rather Activision had the license for both of them, but Toys for Bob had made both. They weren't allowed to do that. They were going to attempt to make some other single-player titles that had been shot down. They were going to try to make another Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game because, again, the remakes of that had done really well. Activision weren't interested. They wanted live service garbage. And, of course, we've seen what's happened with live service garbage. None of them last anymore. Because, again, the ones that people have chosen require them to spend all of their time and money just playing that one game. They don't have time for a new one. We'll see how Valve's deadlock plays out. They might get away with that because, Steam is practically on every gamer PC at this point. They might get away with, that's a fairly significant install base. The deadlock might have staying power, but I guess we'll find out how well it plays. I mean, Team Fortress and Counter-Strike are still going, right? So, anyway. Activision Blizzard effectively didn't know what to do with the studio. The industry's current ongoing retraction is driven in part by executive incompetence. I mean, yes, of course it is. They want money, they want number go up, and they have no creative ability themselves. They just see trends, and they want you to chase the trends without realizing the trends end. They don't last forever, and games take a long time to make. Once you've spotted a trend and decide to jump on it, it is too late. You need to get ahead of the next one if you're trying to make games on a trend, which you really shouldn't be doing anyway. Anyway, speaking of Activision being shit, Activision continued to be shit. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard accused of bad faith bargaining by Raven Software union workers. So this is kind of coming out of the Raven Software QA team becoming unionized late last year, I think. However, they haven't been able to get a collective bargaining agreement with Activision and Microsoft, and the union itself is alleging that this is because they're just not negotiating with them. So there has been a National Labor Relations Board complaint, NLRB, it's the US, complaint against parent companies Activision Blizzard and Microsoft. Microsoft's being lumped into this, important to note. The complaint accuses both companies of bad faith bargaining, concerted activities against unionized workers. So this is retaliation, discharge, and discipline. Unionized Raven staffers are trying to make a collective bargaining agreement with their employer, but they're just not playing ball. After Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, our members were optimistic that they would progress quickly to a first contract at Raven Software. Unfortunately, that has not happened. We encourage Microsoft to address the concerns raised in the unfair labor practice charge and make reaching a fair agreement a priority. Now, I don't want to be I told you so, but I told you so. There are no unions in Microsoft, and they were kind of inheriting a union here from Activision. Also, to make a point, there were no unions in Activision either before Raven Software. This is kind of like the first one. Now, since then, Blizzard have unionized, parts of ZeniMax have unionized, and a bunch of other places, but these were kind of the first ones. So these would be the first ones to do a collective bargaining agreement, and we're seeing how Microsoft and whatever is left of Activision's management are handling it, which is they're not. For Microsoft's part, they say they remain committed to negotiating in good faith, but of course this complaint would suggest no, they don't. There have been multiple bargaining sessions with management since the union was formed in 2022. Okay, so it was late, actually, not last year, the year before, but have yet to make any meaningful progress. So again, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. This is pretty standard operating procedure from Microsoft. They don't allow unions. They haven't gone all the way to do union busting, but is it any really different if you just won't actually negotiate with them in the first place? Anyway, speaking of unions, I guess, Greedfall 2 developers called a strike over working conditions, lack of gender equality and parity, and global mismanagement. So this is Spiders. Spiders are the people behind Greedfall. They're also the people behind Steel Rising and something else that I can't think of right now. Anyway, workers at Nakon-owned Spiders have penned an open letter to their employer detailing grievances over a period of several years and called for a strike in response to management's continued refusal to take their concerns seriously. 44 out of 95 workers have signed the document, so almost half. That's almost half of the working staff, and you gotta think that some of those workers have to include management. Some of that 95 has to include a bit of management as well. So, you take away the management bit, it's probably more than half. I don't know. Maybe they're not included in that anyway. They're hoping that this letter will finally push management to act in the best interest of employees and the company. This document covers several years of known problems, which have been greatly amplified over the past year with the arrival of the current head of the company. So, company changed heads at some point, and this new one is particularly shit. I'd imagine they're probably a MBA or a private equity shithead. Anyway, instability, opposition to anticipating problems and securing working conditions, global mismanagement, turnover and recruitment problems, unacceptable delays in achieving gender equality and parity, lack of transparency, denial of problems, refusal to acknowledge worker representation, and blocked negotiations. This smells very much of I want to run this company as a dictatorship in France. Good luck with that. The open letter is the second that Spiders employees have penned. The last one was back in January 19th. Since then, the workers in question write, the new negotiations have begun on wages and conditions in the studio have continued to deteriorate. To secure our lives, our careers, and the company in the short and long term, the listed issues include a blatant lack of transparency on all aspects of the company, a difficult production cycle for Greedfall 2, management's adamant refusal to acknowledge collective action, which is just refusing to engage with a union. They want to have all of their contract negotiations done solo, i.e. the company, who isn't solo. They'll have a whole team of people, and then you, by yourself, without, any representative body, without a lawyer, without any of those things. Why? Because it's really fucking easy for them to exercise some power over you. Potentially. What's up? Anyway, their demands broadly are greater transparency and worker representation, an end to an authoritarian and ineffective centralization of power, greater freedom to work from home, wage increases commensurate with other Nakon studios, and immediate rectification of all wage discrimination against women and non-binary people. I mean, that seems fine. I mean, obviously not fine if you're used to wielding all of the power and not letting your uppity employees tell you what to do. But from the other end of things, it seems fine. Anyway, on top of all that, Spider staff are calling for a strike to start September 2nd, which is tomorrow, if you're watching this live, and is today, if you're watching this the same day it goes up on YouTube, and has already happened if you're watching it at any time already after that. Writing an article from my college on whether esports should be considered a sport. Do you have any arguments for why it shouldn't? Do you have any arguments against it being considered a sport? I mean, no. You can't make the argument unless you can say chess shouldn't be in the Olympics. And chess is in the Olympics. They make the same argument for shooting. That takes skill, that takes hand-eye coordination. Esport games also takes hand-eye coordination, takes communication with people, and so on and so forth. It's difficult to say why it shouldn't be included when so many other things aren't, I guess, is the way to look at it. I think the argument for why it shouldn't be included probably has to do with the equipment people would be using, how much you can tell if it's being interfered with. It's a bit of a black box kind of thing. With sprinting or whatever, you could have people be doped, I suppose, but you also have to see them run. It's not like you're going to see somebody who knows nothing about being able to do a 100-meter sprint suddenly be able to do a 100-meter sprint out of nowhere. That's not really something you're going to see. You can't really say the same thing for computers, for software, aimbots, wall hacks, that kind of thing. not everybody knows what that is, but they kind of have the idea that software is this magical thing that can just make you good at video games. And they're going to find it very difficult to dissuade people from thinking that way, that anybody could do this. You know, I watch my kid, all he does is play video games all day. He could do this. Why this shouldn't be in the Olympics? I got these other athletes who have to spend their entire life, you know, being able to run really, really fast in 100 meters. A lot of it is going to have come down to it not seeming like it's a lot of work. It not seeming like, you know, they have to do any training or any element of that. And because it's not really shown, because they're not sweating, basically, and because the games that they're going to play won't be very familiar with, you know, everybody who watches the Olympics. You know, it won't have, not everyone's going to know how League of Legends works. You know, not everyone's going to know how Counter-Strike works. You know, not everyone's going to know how whatever game it happens to be. Street Fighter. I don't think they're going to do fighting games. But any of those kind of tactical based games or anything like that, they don't know how that works. Whereas, while not everybody might know the rules of chess, they know the basic gist of chess is, which is checkmate. Right? They get that. That makes sense. The 100-meter sprint, again, that's a pretty straightforward one. Guy go real fast. Guy cross line first, guy win. Easy. Everybody understands that. Javelin. Guy throw stick. Stick go furthest, guy win. Like, again, very straightforward, very easy to explain. Esports are not easy to explain to people who don't know what video games are, 2, don't know what the video game is you're playing, and 3, don't know what the winning condition. All of that is going to be a huge barrier to make it. But if you know all of those things, understand how the sport works, understand what the winning conditions are, understand what the rules are, understand what all of that is, there's no other argument for why it shouldn't be included while all these other things are also included. Again, the only barrier I can see is just ignorance. I don't mean that as a bad thing, it's just people don't know, and it's hard to explain to people. No worries, man. Happy to help. Anyway, speaking of mismanagement, possibly, I don't know, ex-Marathon director was reportedly fired from Bungie following a misconduct investigation. So this was earlier in the year. Chris Barrett was let go from Bungie. It was not clear at the time why they were let go from Bungie. But now we know why. They were replaced as director of the Marathon reboot earlier this year. A report claimed from Bloomberg is that he was fired from Bungie due to misconduct, and that misconduct was allegations of sexual harassment, essentially, from 8 female employees. Yeah, I mean, one person comes forward and says, you know, inappropriate behavior. Okay, maybe there was just a misunderstanding. 2 people come forward and it's potentially that's a coincidence, but not really. 3 people. All right, we're in a bit of trouble here. 8 people. You fucked up. You gotta go. pretty much. At that point, you're like, Jesus. There's a lot of inappropriate behavior in game development. I hear a lot of those stories. There is a lot of inappropriate behavior everywhere. Anywhere there is a position of a power imbalance, there are people who will leverage that power imbalance to get something they want. That is inappropriate for the workplace. Just think, any kind of power imbalance that you can think of. I am your boss, and I am well aware that without this job, you cannot afford medicine for your kid, or you can't afford to pay your rent, or you can't afford something else, something, or losing this job means you go back to prison, or something like that. Cool. I know that now. Hey, blow me. And if you don't, you're fired. There are people like that, but it's going to happen anywhere. Any kind of power imbalance like that, and you get people of questionable ethics, we'll say, in those positions, and that tends to be the people who get into those positions because becoming upper level management requires, I would argue, a lack of ethics. But that's where you're going to get it. Any kind of power imbalance like that. Any kind of whiff of, I have leverage over you. I am now going to use that leverage on you. Now, this kind of sexual harassment that he allegedly went on to do, didn't go that far. It is inappropriate behavior rather than full-on assault, or coercion or anything like that. So, not to say that that's good necessarily, but there's a spectrum of really heinous shit versus you really shouldn't be doing this at work versus we don't want that here. Borderline illegal maybe. Anyway, it's alleged that he befriended women from different departments. There's a kind of questioning around the befriended here. It's more of a case of, hey, I'm your boss and I want to be friends. Okay, great. Brilliant. Anyway, he sent them a barrage of text messages that blurred the lines between professional and personal. He was handsy also, as it's alleged, but again, that's not particularly clear. There's obviously no necessarily evidence of this. Anyway, he called lower-level female employees attractive, asked them to play Truth or Dare, and made references to his wealth and power within the studio, suggesting that he could help advance their careers, with the insinuation being, I can also stall your career if you don't play along. I mean, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a joke when Dennis says, because of the implication, but like, it's funny because it's also true in a way. Anyway, the implication being, if you don't play Truth or Dare with me, or help me help you advance your career, then maybe I'll stall your career. How about that? The Truth or Dare is wild. I know it's ridiculous. Why would you want? Just think here, right? You're at work, and your boss wants to play Truth or Dare with you, and it's like, Truth, you like working here, yes? You're like, okay, Dare. And it's like, Dare, yeah. Blow me. Fuck. What am I supposed to do? Anyway, quit that job is what you should do, but not everybody is in a position where they can quit their job. Staff at Bungie were not made aware of the situation behind Barrett's departure. They were simply led to believe that he was on sabbatical. They didn't find out until much later on when his company accounts were disabled and deactivated. So they were never formally told that he was fired. They were just led to believe he was on sabbatical. I don't think they were told he was on sabbatical. They just didn't say where he was. Which is a weird way to... It's like, you're in charge of the whole team. Creative director on the project. And having them not there. And also not being told that they're not coming back. That's insane. That's incredible mismanagement. Anyway. According to Barrett himself, I feel that I've always conducted myself with integrity and been respectful and supportive of my colleagues, many of whom I consider my closest friends. Can't really be friends with your subordinates, but okay. I never understood my communications to be unwanted, and I would never have thought they could possibly have made anyone feel uncomfortable. Of course not. Narcissism. If anyone ever felt that way about their interaction with me, they did. 8 people, 8 women, came forward to say that they felt that way. I am truly sorry. So again, it's not I'm sorry, it's I'm sorry that you were upset. It's not I'm sorry for my actions. It's I'm sorry you were upset. That's not an apology. Anyway, it's also a pretty standard fake apology for people in this position. Anyway, again, this isn't new. It is news, but it's not new. This is pretty standard behavior in large corporate bodies that don't have a kind of rigorous, ethically focused HR department when HR is friends with management. This is what happens when you don't have employees sitting on the board or lower level employees also in management at the same time. Unionized staff, same. It's all of this kind of stuff. Anyway, former Valorant game director Joe Ziegler has now confirmed that he has taken over instead. So, is Marathon dead in the water? Right now, technically no. They do have a game director in place. Valorant is particularly well received, so it's probably okay to say that the game will be alright, but also on top of that, Destiny 2 isn't doing particularly well for Bungie. They've had a number of layoffs, like 200 or so people laid off in the last while. Sony are increasingly taking more and more control of the studio. Bungie were acquired by Sony originally to sort of kind of grandfather the live service initiative that Jim Ryan was pushing at the time. But since Sony is walking back all of those live service things, the need for Bungie to be owned by Sony now is less and less worthwhile. So it may be the case that Sony will step in and just can Marathon and make them do something else, or change direction on it, go back to its single player roots. To a reminder, Marathon, the original Marathon, is a very well received first person shooter. You played it now, it's clunky as fuck, but at the time it was pretty well received. And turning it into a weird extraction thing always felt like, what are you doing? Anyway, so yeah, they were brought in to kind of grandfather the live service push. Sony are pushing back on the live service things, or pulling back on them. They've cancelled vast majority of them. A few are still in the works because they're far enough along that cancelling them at this point would be losing them money. But yeah, I think Marathon is still early enough in development that they could get away with cancelling it. Arguably, maybe they should. Anyway, moving on. So I did say we had something to talk about for Visions of Mana. So Visions of Mana has only just come out, but its studio is reportedly already set to be shuttered. Cool. Thanks for doing your job. There's the door. Brilliant. Anyway, Visions of Mana at the time of the article had only just been released. According to new reports, plans to cut back at and eventually close the developer Uka Studios have been in the works for a while. The current situation at NetEase is that they have cut all but a handful of jobs. So the studio isn't being shuttered specifically because of Visions of Mana. So that game hasn't been out long enough for them to make any decision on whether it sold well or did well or anything like that. The plan was to shutter the studio anyway, and they kept the team on mostly just to finish out the contract they had with Square Enix. Square Enix own the Of Mana series, so I imagine they were under contract with them, NetEase, so they would have had to finish that out, and now that they have finished that out, they're looking to scale back. So in general, NetEase and also Tencent are kind of scaling back a lot of their Japanese development. So both of them would be kind of large Chinese companies, and they had kind of pushed out into the Japanese market, but have started to kind of shrink, and this would more or less be in line with NetEase kind of shuttering a couple of other studios, mostly mobile game studios. Anyway, Uka opened in 2020, was comprised of a lot of veterans from Capcom and Bandai Namco, and Visions of Mana was the first game that they made, and as it turns out, it's going to be the only game they made. And the majority of the staff at Uka have been laid off already. The ones who are left are basically there just to finish things out. NetEase has been cutting staff at Uka for a while, since the spring at least, so they've been losing people while also trying to develop the game at the same time. You know, so it's like earlier in the year. It's not like the game went gold in December, you know? It only went gold like a couple of weeks ago. That's people still trying to work on the game, knowing that you're gonna be let go. That's eventually. You know, it's just incredible amount of stress to put on people. Anyway, it's not a reaction to the release of Visions of Mana because it couldn't be. It just hasn't been out long enough. But what a thing to just have hanging over you. Just, hey, we're going to fire you eventually, but can you keep working on this product? It's like, fuck you, I guess. The games market, or the fucking jobs market at this point is so shit that yes, I will keep working on it, but fuck. Anyway, last thing we'll have a look at, some community things. So this is open source game clones, or osgameclones.com. This was pointed out to me, I think it was Boing Boing article. But basically, these are open source versions of a lot of different games. There's a lot of games that would have been decompiled from their original platform. So, vast majority of these are Nintendo, but there are a few from other ones. They would have been decompiled from, you know, the ROM off the Nintendo cartridge or the Super Nintendo cartridge. Some of them off the N64, some of them off the GameCube, and so on. There's some more modern stuff as well. But anyway, there's a lot of them here. These are all open source. They'll run on basically any PC, if they are in fact playable. There are kind of a few of them that are down as unplayable, but there are a lot. These are just the A's. Now we're into B's. The Baldur's Gates is running on open source stuff. So this is one way for you to play a clone version of, a game that you might like. Anyway, there's a lot. Something to keep in mind. This site tries to gather open source or source available remakes of great old games in one place. So this is basically games that either their source has been decompiled and you can recompile it yourself and run it, or there's an open source version of the game going on at the time. Like there is a GTA one in the works. Open Vice, I think, is Vice City. Open Liberty is Grand Theft Auto 3. It's a lot of different ones going on there. Anyway, osgameclones.com. Get to it before Nintendo does. Because if they find it, it won't be around for much longer. Anyway. Right. Star Wars Outlaws is probably the big game this month, or this week, so we'll leave that in the background. Right. That is the news for the 26th of August to the 1st of September, 2024. So some pretty good stuff out of the Nintendo showcases. I know there wasn't any first-party stuff, but they did say it wasn't going to be a first-party showcase anyway. Some interesting indies, and some stuff from the third party. Probably for me, like the Castlevania DS games, all being collected under one thing is a pretty big deal. Those are some really good Castlevania games and have been kind of difficult to play up until now. So having them preserved is pretty good. Hopefully, potentially revitalize that scene. What's kind of interesting also is that that's another good move from Konami, who have historically made terrible moves. So they've done the Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. That's Metal Gear 1, 2, 3. Or Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, rather. All brought forward to modern consoles, modern platforms, PC. They're doing now the same thing with Castlevania. Silent Hill 2 remake actually seems like it'll be good. The previews all seem fairly glowing of it. The Snake Eater remake, similarly, seems like it's really good. It's like, are Konami back? Question mark? Maybe? Possibly? I don't know. Historically, they've been not great, but at one time they were good. Maybe they'll be good again. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, elsewhere, yes, I'm always going to pine for the Legacy of Kain. Anything to do with that, just make more games, please. Just whatever live service thing you have in the works right now, just stop. Stop that and go make a new Legacy of Kain game. And not a fucking hero shooter. Good God, I will kill you if you make it a hero shooter. I will go all the way to Montreal or wherever the fuck Crystal Dynamics is. Anyway, monthly games for PlayStation Plus this month, September, not great. They're pretty bad. Quidditch game, the baseball game, and Little Nightmares 2 was alright, but otherwise, no. The other two are pretty shit. Okay, I don't know. The baseball game might be good if you actually like baseball, but I don't. So to me, it's shit. Anyway, new releases. Star Wars Outlaws is too expensive right now, so I'm going to wait for that to drop in price. Bloodless, I am definitely going to give a shot. The full game, because I did like what I played of the demo. Visions of Mana, I'm a little conflicted about buying it, because the devs are no longer employed. So they probably won't get the money. It'll go to a bunch of executives who did nothing to make the game. So there's a little bit of conflict there. I don't know if I actually want to buy it, but I want to support the devs who made it, but buying the game wouldn't be supporting them. I don't know. It's a weird way to think about it. It's the other way to think about it is they got paid already, I suppose. Anyway, not sure how I feel about it. MEO, The Smiling Man. I like a good detective puzzle mystery thing. So yeah, I'll probably give that a shot at some point. Industry news. I mean, it's not surprising that the video game industry doesn't like unions because it means less money for them. Is anyone shocked that they're going to be not playing well? Bad faith bargaining. I don't think any industry has historically played well with a union because it means less money for them and more money for the people who actually make the thing that you buy. God forbid. God forbid they get some of the money. Anyway, the Crash 5 news, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. I kind of said it at the time when Toys for Bob were thrown in the Call of Duty mines that, like, okay, that's it for them. No more Crash Bandicoot, so. It wouldn't have surprised me if they would have eventually been absorbed just into Activision proper, or possibly absorbed into Raven or Treyarch, who was the other people who do Call of Duty. That wouldn't have surprised me. Now, as it turns out, they have managed to buy themselves out and have gone independent. But their very first act of going independent was to partner with Microsoft for their next game. So, guys, you just got out of an abusive relationship. Don't go back into one. What are you doing? Anyway, weird decision on their part, but I guess they needed the money. And Microsoft probably owned the license to whatever their next game is going to be, which is maybe Crash, maybe Spyro, something like that. Don't remember what else was in industry bullshit. Anyway, that's it for the news. So what's happening on the channel? So we have no worries. Hopefully I got you a C at least. C minimum. Alright, these are the games planned for Let's Plays this year, 2024. If it's got a tick, it's already there. It's on the channel. There's a VOD over on YouTube if you're interested in it. And the yellow dots, they're in progress, and the grays, they're on their way soon. And if there's a lock on it, the game isn't out. Like, I can't play the game if the game isn't out. Some changes we've made because Replaced has been delayed into next year. Bloodlines 2 has been delayed into next year, so I've added Dragon Age Origins because Dragon Age the Veilguard is out the end of this year, and I kind of want to refresh myself on the story, even though I played that game so much I could probably recite the script. But anyway, and then Post Trauma is a kind of really interesting survival horror thing that is going to be out later this year at some point. So that's what's replaced. Some good upcoming games. I hope so. If I can get to like any of them, there's a good chance I will not get to quite a few. Like Tears of the Kingdom, that's a huge game. Debatable. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1, I have to get it actually running first, and if I can get it running, then we'll play it. Getting it actually running is the real part. Pentiment is supposed to be good. It really has been on my list for a good while. I do have to actually make time and play it. Anyway, that's the plan for 2024. Off stream, I've been playing too much Vampire Survivors, arguably. If you're not familiar, this is... God, how to fucking explain Vampire Survivors? It's like the opposite of a bullet hell, I guess. You are the bullet hell, as the game's tagline comes along. It's a very passive game. All you do is move around. You collect various level ups and power ups and stuff like that to make your character more and more powerful. And eventually you just have screen wiping abilities that are just killing thousands of enemies all at one go. It's very, very one more go to it. You know, it's that run could have gone better. Or that one was amazing. It was an incredibly busted build. I want to make that again. That kind of thing. Everything, the orbs you pick up sounds good. I mean, there's just some really good sound effect work. Everything feels good in that game. Anyway, I've been playing way too much of that. And then on top of that, I went back because of the story we did on Journey to the Savage Planet last week. I was thinking, did that ever get rescued from Google Stadia? And turns out it did. It did get rescued from Stadia. It is on PlayStation, PC, Xbox. I think it's on Switch as well. I played a little bit of it. It is a lot of fun. So it's a first-person, kind of a Metroidvania, sort of. It's also got a bit of No Man's Sky to it, and it is very funny. It's written really, really, like, humorous. You're kind of you're a group of galactic explorers that have just been thrown off to various different planets. And then there's a very, like, corporate overlord thing going on, that they don't take care of you at all, and your equipment is all broken, and the place they sent you to is, incredibly dangerous and lots of other things. It's very tongue-in-cheek, but also, like, dystopic. It's It's just really well written, I think. I need to play a lot. I need to play more of it, but Vampire Survivors, though, it's there. I can't stop playing it. Anyway, if I ever do stop playing Vampire Survivors, though, next week we're going to take a look at a game called Nobody Wants to Die. This came out a month or so ago. It is a first-person detective type thing. So think... what was it called? There's another game by Bloober Team, people who were making the Silent Hill 2 remake, and they made Layers of Fear, and they made something with Rutger Hauer that was like a cyberpunk detective thing. Observer? That's it. Observer System Redux. That's the one. It reminds me a lot about that. But this kind of has, while it does still have kind of cyberpunk element to it, it has a bit more of a noir vibe to it. It's like cyber noir, I suppose is probably the other way to look at it. I haven't heard much about it. I haven't seen too many reviews, but it's from a new studio. Again, a new studio made up of former AAA devs. Heard that a lot in the last year or so, year and a bit. What with all the layoffs, people getting laid off, can't get a new job at another company because they're also doing layoffs. They're like, fuck it, we'll make our own company, I guess. So we'll see how it plays out. I think the gist of the game is... rich people have figured out how to become immortal, and nobody dies anymore, right? But somehow somebody died. In this, Nobody Wants to Die. I think the title kind of says, like, you know, nobody wants to. They're all paying to stay alive forever, kind of thing. And obviously, the poorest can't afford it. But somebody died who wasn't supposed to die, and you need to figure out what happened. And maybe that has implications for society at large. I don't know. We'll see how it gets on. Anyway. Reminds me of Love, Death, Robots episode. Interesting. I'm not familiar. Oh, it's literally Love, Death. Okay, maybe it is then. Maybe it isn't. Maybe they saw that episode too, and they thought it was, hey, let's make a game out of that. Maybe. Anyway, that will probably take the place of. It'll take the place of Resident Evil 5 because we've already finished that. All right, so this is a schedule from last week. I haven't had a chance to actually fix it. So just pretend that System Shock and Resident Evil 5 have swapped places, and Resident Evil 5 is replaced with Nobody Wants to Die. That's what the schedule will look like, because that's what it'll be. Okay. So just keep that in your mind. So instead, it'll be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, System Shock, and Wednesday and Friday, Nobody Wants to Die. Okay? Okay, I'll put up a proper picture later. Anyway, that is it from me for this week. Yeah, exactly, pretending. Thanks for dropping into the chat, Biley. Appreciate it. Locked in my mind. Exactly. Never going to escape. That's just the schedule forever now. It's never going to change. We're just playing those games forever. Nice. Thanks, Biley, for dropping by the chat. Appreciate it. Anyone who's lurking also appreciate it as well. Feel free to say stuff. We're friendly here. Mostly. Also, if you want to catch up on any of the games that I mentioned in the game card for 2024, lots of Let's Plays that we've done on the channel this year and well before that, because we've been going a while now. You'll find that over on YouTube, youtube.com, Doomtrain5. I think it's /@Doomtrain5 because YouTube is weird, but that's the URL for it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch live too. Twitch.tv/Doomtrain5. And there's Discord as well if you want to drop by there, and you can chat, hang out, talk about various things or suggest new games to play on the channel and all of that kind of stuff as well. !Discord if you're on Twitch. We'll get you the link, and if you're on YouTube, the link is in the description of the video. Right, I'm gonna head off. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we will see you on Tuesday for System Shock. Not what it says there. Remember? The one in your head. System Shock. Alright. I'm gonna head off. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for dropping that link too as well, Bailey. Right. Bye-bye.